welcome. Hi, my stitching and quilting friends. Today I wanted to give you just a glimpse of my sewing room. I'm going to try to explain each area as we come to it. I'll do my best. I'm going to have to do a voiceover. I was afraid to walk and talk and move the camera at the same time. It's been a wonderful year so far. I'm blessed and thankful for all my new friends that I've come friends with through these videos. I've made so many friends, and I want to thank y'all so much. You message me, you email me, you chat with me in the video, and I want to thank you. And I want to thank all my new subscribers. Thank you for coming and subscribing and hitting the thumbs up, and thank you for commenting. I want to welcome each and every one of you. I hope you find some things that you enjoy. I want to be able to show you my sewing room, and it is truly on a budget. I will try to explain each thing, what it cost, no matter how long ago it was. I'll do my best. I don't put a lot of money in my sewing. We haven't taken care of the lights yet. That is going to take just a little bit of time. We got to save up. And we also mostly need to find the right lighting, because I don't want to buy something and make a mistake and say, oops, and it's too costly. I've always been one that watches my pennies. I've had to. And I thank God for that, because it's made me a better person. Before I get into the video, because it's going to end after the video showing the sewing room, I wanted to encourage you all to continue to read your Bible. I know my last video, my stitching video, I had mentioned to try to set you a limit to at least 5 minutes a day reading the Bible, at least a verse a day, and see where God can let that grow in you. I know I love the Old Testament. I used to not like it. I thought it was hard. I thought it was all about who begat who, but that's also in the New Testament. But that's part of our lineage. We need to know these things, but don't go to it right away. Go to different areas in the Old Testament. Start from the beginning and go all the way through. And when you get to areas that just seems a little bit too hard or complicated, like this doesn't interest me, who begat who, that's okay. Just move on. Just skim through until you get to the next part, because there's so many interesting things in there. There was a little boy that had died, and the mother had traveled to go and get someone to come back. And he took the little boy and covered himself with his body and prayed out to God for him. And the boy came back to life. And there's also a woman that didn't have any money, and she had just a little bit of oil left. And she was told to collect vessels from neighbors that they weren't going to use anymore, and to fill them, to close her door and start filling them. And she had more than enough to live off of after she sold what she could. And she had enough to provide for her and I think she had a child. I'm not a scholar by any means. My husband's better at the Bible than I am. I try to look at the Bible and relate it to my life now, and as I was growing, and how I can better myself and help others. So you could look at it that way, or you can really get into a bunch of details. I'm not going to tell you names, because that's like telling you a book before you've read it. And this is an amazing book. It will change your life. God will change your life, because this book will draw you closer to Him and help you to repent and turn your life over to Him. So I encourage you, continue to read. And now I'm going to share with you just a little bit of what my plans are, and then we'll move on to the video of the room. My plans for this year is there is a designer, Susie's Sitcom. I'll try to link it below. I have contacted her and she agreed to allow me to do some videos using her designs, so I can put a link to it so you can go find it and show you how to do some piecing and some applique. Now she does bench pillows and table runners, things of that nature, but I'm going to show you how you can change up the pattern some to make placemats. Other ways that you can use her patterns. So if you'll join me sometime this month, I will be getting started with that. I'm excited about that. I'm still recovering from a pinched nerve, but I'm doing well. God's blessing me each and every day. And I'm going to be working on the quilt that I showed you on the wall, and that is the Vintage Housewife by Lori Holt. That is for one of my granddaughters. It's going to have to be for her birthday because it wasn't done in time for Christmas, but that's okay. She understands. And so I've got 2 more blocks to do, and then I can put it together. And hopefully y'all can see me put it together. I've got a couple of quilts that I need to get quilted. I've got the boxes that I showed you, the colored boxes that was on the shelf. And that used to be a walk-in closet area. I've got Prim and Proper Kitted Up that I want to start by Lori Holt. I've got Sunbonnet Sue blocks that I did back in 2016, I believe. It was a block along at a local quilt shop that I used to work at. And then I have a guild project back from 2018. I'm looking up here because it's got the dates. From 2018, I want to finish. And then I have Vintage Christmas that I started last year, and I want to work on it and have it finished. And then I have a summer and a winter version of a quilt from Asheville Cotton Company. And it's just about finished being put together. This is a handwritten pattern. Some of it's applique, some of it's pieced. But I was so excited about it. I've always seen their quilts. Every other year they have one that includes piecing and applique. Every other year it's just piecing. So I'm anxious to get that finished. And then the placemats, the Santa placemats that I showed y'all last year, I didn't get finished this year, but I plan to get finished finished last year. I plan to get finished this year in 2022. And then I have a vintage flower along that I did in one of the groups that is got a lot of hand applique on it. I did some hand blanket stitch. It's fusible, but then I did hand blanket stitch. So I'm anxious to get that together. So, all right, that's enough of my plans for quilting, and I'll share my stitching plans in my next video. I don't have very many whips to carry over. I think I have more in my quilting whips, and I forgot, I also have my red and white sampler by Lori Holt. The sashing's put on. I just need to join the blocks together. So hopefully early 2022 that will be finished. This will be my year of finishing whips. I want to get them out of the way, especially my quilting whips, because there's so many quilts that I want to make. Okay, so now on with the sewing room tour. Thank y'all for joining me. God bless y'all. Don't forget the thumbs up and the subscribe button. All right. This is as you enter into the sewing room. I'm going to scan the room first and let you see what the view is like from the doorway. That far left corner over there used to be a walk-in closet. We took the wall down just to open up the room a little bit. And there's a couple of more of my machines. And then to the left of the doorway is the design wall. Then I'm going to bring you back around, and then I'll start telling you about some of the machines and the cabinets that I have. This is a sewing room that was done on a true budget, a very low budget. Most of this stuff I already had back from when I had a sewing room before. We'd buy things on a, at a low price. First machine that I'm going to show you is a Brother Serger. I've had it since about 2008 or 9. It cost approximately $600 on clearance. The next machine that I'm going to show you is the first machine that my grandmother ever bought. Matter of fact, it was the only machine she ever bought. Her name was Edna, so I named my machine Edna. It's a 1956 Atlas. It's the machine that I learned how to sew on. That's the machine I mainly use to piece, mostly to sew my bindings on. Everybody needs a sketch pad or a tablet just to write down things on. Here's two little drawer cabinets that I have. The one on the right, it's still a mess, but I purchased it for about $30. The one on the left belonged to my grandmother. Here's a display of some awards that I won back in 2019. It's the two quilts that's at the beginning and the end of this video. The one that I won all of these 4 awards for was Farm Sweet Farm. That's the large quilt, Lori Holt's quilt. And it won Viewer's Choice, 2 sponsor awards, and first place. It only took me about 20 years to finally win the big award. It's exciting, so yeah, I got to display them a little bit. And then this ribbon that's on the top left, the blue ribbon, that is for Life Began in a Garden. That's also at the beginning. This cabinet over my ironing station is a cabinet that I got from a bank I used to work at back in the mid-1980s. They were remodeling and asked us if we wanted anything. So definitely I took the cabinet and that black chair sitting in front of my embroidery machine. This cabinet holds some Lori Holt fat quarters. And then some buttons. I made that little jar of buttons and I turned it into a pin cushion. I made it into a local magazine in 2015, and I was sewing a quilted bag at National Quilting Day, and I'll try to show a picture of it in the video also. This cabinet, we were over at my daughter's house and she said, "Hey Mom, can you use this cabinet? I hate just to throw it away." My husband hollered out, "Yes, she can use it for an ironing station." I was thinking I could use it somewhere else in the house, but hey, it makes a great ironing station. And I just bought that wool mat for $70 on Etsy. And here's some curtains that I made, and it's Debbie Mum fabric. And I'm going to bring you back around and show you the stool cover that I made to go in front of Edna. It's out of that fabric. I had a very small amount of that fabric and I utilized every piece of it. My grandmother's stool had broken, so she couldn't pass that down to me. But we found one in a vintage shop for $25. So we brought it home and then I covered it, and that's the seat that I used for Edna and for the serging machine. And that little red rolly cart somebody had given me. And then there's my air compressor my husband had gotten for me a long time ago. He paid about $25 for that. And then here is a little tree that a friend of mine, her name is Debbie, different spelling than some of the other Debbies. And she made this for all the girls in the Quilts of Valor that get together to sew quilts for veterans, and she turned it into a sewing tree. And I'm going to take down the Christmas decorations on it, put up different themes like Valentine's Day, but leave all the sewing notions on there. So it's a fun little display to put in the sewing room. And there's a little vintage sewing box. It's an oval shape that has a pin cushion on top that I found at one of our quilting club sales. People were selling stuff. And there's some of my quilting threads. And then here is a picture of my bobbin winder, industrial bobbin winder. Here's a pin cushion that I made in the Art of Home Club on Facebook. It's a Jacqueline Steves Club. We all made one of these little pin cushions. And we also made another bee pin cushion. The other bee cushion was her design. And there's a little can that I got at Dollar Tree that I keep sewing notions in. And there's an easel that I made to hold my sewing notions. I didn't use a pattern for it. It will fold up, but I have to remove the longer items that stuck in the back and the ruler in the front in order for it to fold up and carry with me. And there's my quilting threads again, and there's a little vintage doll and doggy pin cushion and some more Lori Holt fabric. And there is a battery operated pin keep that holds the pins so you can put in quilts. And my Lori Holt shapes up there on the top shelf, and then all the Lori Holt books. And then design board that I made, plus the other one stored back there in the back. And I keep my glues and stuff in that cabinet. And I took the doors off of that cabinet. My husband bought them back around 2010. And then there's a little sticker that my son's girlfriend had gotten me for Christmas. And this is mainly the machine that I do my quilting on. I do some piecing, but it's mainly quilting. It's my Juki 2010. Paid about $1,200 for it. And there is my book stand that Rhonda gave me for Christmas, and a Lori Holt book. And there's my printer along with a vintage pin cushion that another friend Debbie gave me. And then another Debbie friend made me that bag. It's a quilted bag. And then I keep all my piecing threads, some of the smaller spooled quilting threads on the rack just behind me. And I'm showing you what's directly behind me when I'm sitting at my quilting machine, onto the other machines, and then back to the design wall. This is the little area that was the walk-in closet where we took the wall down. And here is those little colored tubs where I keep all my whips for my quilts. And I have one kit up there that's ready to get started with. There is a little thread box, sewing box that I got. And then here is a red basket that I made at Myrtle Beach Quilt Party back 2016. And there is a can, a large tomato can that I covered. I didn't have a pattern for it either. And a little sewing basket that my blind friend gave me. And there's some of the reproduction fabrics, or things that look like it could be a reproduction fabric. Some are Lori Holt fat quarters, but before I got into buying Lori Holt fabrics, I was just picking up whatever I could on sale. And there's some of my embroidery threads that's in that white cabinet and that brown cabinet that's underneath my printer. I had to try to squeeze myself in there because that big wall cabinet needed to go on an outside wall so it could hold all that stuff. And that cabinet cost under $100 back around 2010. And this is my sewing machine, Janome, that my husband bought me about 4 years ago, the day he broke his ankle, December the 8th. I can't forget that day. It snowed on that day, on our way home from buying the machine. And the cabinet opens up. I only use this cabinet now when I'm doing free motion embroidery or decorative stitches. But I don't leave this machine opened up for lack of space. And I'm just showing you a couple of little drawers. These are cleaned out. And I put my throwaway pins or needles in a medicine bottle to make, so when it fills up, I can throw it away and nobody gets their fingers stuck. And the second drawer shows that I have my quilting gloves, because I used to use this machine for quilting, but now it's just there in case I need it for maybe free motion embroidery or decorative stitches. And this little teeny holder right here, my friend Mickey made me. I was her stitching buddy at Secret Stitching Buddy at one of my quilt guilds that I belong to. She filled my room, or filled my house, with lots of things she made. And here is a brother machine. My friend Karen, she turned me on to it. She bought one and said it's a fantastic machine, and it's a embroidery only. It makes my quilt labels. It only cost me $500. Now that Janome machine, it was around $3,500. And then here's my design wall. I'm working on Vintage Housewife by Lori Holt for my granddaughter. I got 2 blocks left to make. And I'm going to show you 2 of my cross stitches that I'm getting ready to turn into pillows. The top one is The Brick House by Brenda Gervais. It was a sew-along with Happy Little Stitch Shop. And here is the Prim by Lori Holt, which Happy Little Stitch Shop is doing a sew-along right now with that. And I'm showing you a close-up of some of the stitches. And yeah, there's some shadows in the applique. I didn't cut away like I normally do. But I'm going to show you some of the blanket stitches. And it was done with the Janome. And I did a fusible applique with this quilt. It wasn't the way that Lori Holt does it. And there's some hand embroidery that I did on this block. Some vintage trim for the lamp. I have a big bag of some vintage trim, truly vintage trim. I've had it myself for about 20 years, and it was trims that were given to me. So I've been using it here and there whenever I can. There's some of Lori Holt's fabrics in here, but not many. It's before I started really buying them. There's one of her fabrics right there. That's truly a vintage fabric right there, that yellow dress. And then that shirt is Lori Holt's fabrics. But I've always just used what I had rather than buy designer fabrics. I just started buying some designer fabrics this past year. There's some more close-ups of some of the stitching. But this pretty much concludes the showing of the sewing room. I want to thank y'all for joining me. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up and the subscribe. And tell me what else that you'd like to see about my sewing room. What else you'd like for me to do as far as tutorials. Just give me some general ideas. Thanks again, and God bless.